I'm really excited to think about the fact that we've known each other for a very long time, Damon, and that we worked together a long time ago. And anytime you have a great success, I get really thrilled for you as a collaborator, as a colleague, as a friend. And that was a wonderful experience. And I have photos. So, I may share those.
Are you blackmailing me, Adam Cook? Is that what's happening?
What's that? What are you saying?
Are you blackmailing me? Is that what's happening here?
I think
Live on Zoom?
I think even today that you put on Facebook a prank call you made to John Laws when you were 20, pretending to be a very old woman. I think you're up for it. All right. So I'd like to ask you a few things. I mean, the bulk of our audience are actors in training. So some of the questions I'm going to ask you will be focused on technique and process and what kind of preparation you do for any roles that you have. But I'd just first like to sort of go through some of the people that you've worked with and then ask you some really pointed questions about the work that you've done. So, I mean, on my list, I have that you've worked, besides me, Jane Campion, Dana Reed, Jennifer Kent, Steven Soderbergh, David Mamet, Gail Edwards, Scott Hicks, Russell Crowe, David Fincher, Clint Eastwood, and Quentin Tarantino, of course. I mean, you know all this because you've lived it, you've done it. And when I printed your CV today, it was thicker than the Gutenberg Bible. So like you've like worked consistently. So why didn't you become a vet?
Yes, I did want to be a vet pretty much from the age of, 11 to 15, I think. I had my mindset on it. I think probably because I wasn't studious enough. I started, my first report card at high school was straight A's. My last report at high school was straight C's. I just kind of just lost interest in trying. And yeah, so that the vet idea went out the window there. And I think I sort of just lost interest in that idea. Yeah, it's weird hearing all those names because, part of that's, just having hung around for long enough. But a lot of those names have, really been, again, in the last 10 years of work. And I would not have ever in my wildest dreams imagine getting to work with some of those people. Even when I went to America, which was really properly about 15 years ago now, I didn't go because I thought I would get to work with those people, or that I should get to work with those people, or that if I try hard enough and do all the right things that I will. I just did it so I didn't regret not going. So I could say, okay, I did that. But my assumption was certainly not that anything would work out the way it did.
So how did it happen? How did the break in America happen? So many actors in Australia aim for that, and they do the move to LA and they're fixated on pilot season. And you ended up making it work. How did the transition to working in America happen?
There was a few different little stages. The first time I went there was a disaster. I went there when I was 30, 29, 30. And I'd won the green card in the lottery. I'd gone for just one time and I won it and was like, okay, I'm going to move to America now. 10 weeks later, I was back in Australia with my tail between my legs after having the worst time of my life. What I know now that I didn't know then, lots of things really, but was that you can't just turn up there and go, okay, well, I can act. I've got some tape of me on some TV shows in Australia. Here I am, hire me. I mean, there are just so many actors there. I think there were something like 75,000 actors in LA alone. So it's where everybody goes, from around the world. So it's very, very hard and involves a lot of luck. And, it's sadly not just about whether you can act or not. I feel like that's probably third or fourth on their list. The most important thing is whether you're hot right now, whether there's something they can talk about. And when I went back 5 years later, there was something to talk about. It wasn't that hot, but it was something. And that was an American horror film called House of Wax, which filmed in Queensland. And I played the first of many Southern redneck characters in that film. And I was only in it for about 10 minutes, but I then went over again, having given up the green card, having really no interest in working there again. And I got an agent and a manager because I was in a film. They hadn't even seen it. It was 2 weeks. It was coming out in 2 weeks, but because there were billboards everywhere, and you know that they definitely have a thing over there of not wanting to miss out. It's almost like buying stocks that they are worried are going to be worth a lot if they don't get in early. So they'll throw the spaghetti at the wall and hope it sticks. And the fact that I was in that movie, they didn't really know how much I was in it. I'm sure when they saw it, they were like, "Oh, is that all you do in it?" Okay. But that having that agent and manager meant that I then went for auditions, which was something that hadn't happened the first time around. And even that took a while. So I went over there for 3 months after that trip to try and get auditions. I did a couple, not many. I didn't get even close. Came home for a few months, went back for another 3 months, didn't get close to anything. And, you know, being the glass half empty guy that I am, I was like, okay, well, I get the message. You're not, I'm not going to get work here. So I thought I'll do one more trip, and I'm going to go for 3 months. And if I don't get a job, or even like really close to something, I'll say, okay, done and dusted. I tried that. It didn't work. And the second day of that third trip is when I got a guest role, first ever job there, which was written and directed by David Mamet. So that changed everything for me. Even though it was just one episode of one show, I immediately went, okay, this whole thing that seemed impossible yesterday is not impossible.
And when you look back on it, I mean, when you're living through it, it's hard to know how it's going to turn out. And then you look back on it and can't believe it's happened. I mean, I was thinking, are your legs covered in bruises because you keep kicking yourself? That so many great
There's
things.
definitely a lot of kicking and pinching going on. Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't, nothing is, it almost becomes, you know, it's surreal. Like if your agent calls you up and says, we just got the call, you're in the Quentin Tarantino movie, you can't believe you're hearing that sentence. You know, it just doesn't seem, it's so surreal that you can't even really, you're not, like I wasn't jumping up and down. I was probably in a weird way, like I probably had a bigger reaction to getting laughter on the 23rd floor with you, Adam, because it was like, oh my God, was that like, hearing the news that you were in a Quentin Tarantino movie is so absurd. It just, you can't even, you're just like, okay, right. That's, wow. Okay. You know?
Yeah. And then, you know, then when it's announced in the social media, everybody that knows you is posting it on Facebook going, how excited they are for you that it happened.
Yes. And then your main 4-minute scene is not in the film, and you have to explain to everybody that you were in it a little bit more at the start.
Well, it's a very good segue to your other appearance as Charles Manson in Mindhunter. So we're going to have a look at that. And then I'm going to talk to you and ask you some questions about that performance and how you brought it together. So let's have a look at a clip from Mindhunter. When you look at that, Damon, what do you think? You may have seen it a few times now.
Sorry, I missed the last part of your question.
Well, when you're watching that now, because you had to just sit through watching that performance of your own again,
yeah.
What do you think when you see it?
Oh, the mistake, the faults.
Of course.
The things I would, yeah, like it's a little bit cringy because I'm just like, you know, it's hard not to, you always have an idea of how you hope something comes across, and it's very rare that it does come across that way. And I think you could, like, if you didn't have the evidence of getting future work, you could very easily just be convinced you were not very good. I think that's a thing that actors often deal with. Sometimes I have to, like I literally have to go, okay, you can't be bad because you work regularly. So it can't, I mean, or maybe you are, maybe you're one of the actors who's bad who works regularly.
I think it's
I just noticed, you know, I just noticed it. But anyway, no, I was just like looking at it going, damn, that was a good makeup job. Um,
I thought that too, but the thing of it is, I mean, you know, like when Charlize Theron did Monster, and there was some really kind of, you know, dull criticism that said, oh, that incredibly beautiful woman, and she allows herself to look like that. But what I really loved about that performance, like yours in Mindhunter, is that it's an inner transformation. It's not just about cosmetics and about, you know, the swastika on your forehead or contact lenses or whatever. It's actually an inner transformation. And most actors, I think, are booked to play themselves or someone very close to themselves, but you're not. Like, I think you're consistently different in every role you play. And is that something that you strive for? Like when you're looking for work, when you're examining scripts and fielding offers, that you're looking for something different? What draws you to a script?
I do like that. I mean, I definitely love if I read something and it's a character that's both very different from me and very different from something I've played before, then it's really, really appealing. But I've got to say that over and above that is just how good the writing is in general. So I would rather play a character who was perhaps a little bland and you know, maybe like me, but brilliantly written, than something that is some crazy character that is nothing like me, but you're like, this dialogue makes me cringe. Because I really do think this is something that it's almost like, because I've in recent years been lucky enough to get opportunities that involve the writing being so good, I've suddenly come to realize something I didn't even know because I was never getting to do it before, which is good writing leads to good acting in a way that I just never, I mean, I know that sounds kind of obvious, but in a way that, like, I would credit any performance I've given that is considered to be a good one with, so I would credit the writing in almost every case with that being so. And I could give plenty of examples where I was not very good. And it was more often than not when I was reading a script and the writing was like, how do I say this? I don't even know how to get these words out. No one talks like this. You know, when you get a script where you're like, oh my God, you know, sometimes like the deleted scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is a great scene if you ever get set, just as a great scene on the page. It's on the DVD and so forth. That was one of those scenes where just saying it felt like it was. I said to Quentin Tarantino, I said, you write good acting into your dialogue. Like it's just, I just have to say it. You know, it makes so much of a difference.
Yeah, the quality of the writing is the real springboard for a great performance, isn't it? It makes me think of when Glenda Jackson said, I'd rather be in a good production of a bad play than a bad production of a good play. You know, like you want to honor the writing. And if it's good writing, most of what you need is on the page already. So can you tell me what you enjoy most about the experience of acting? Like what keeps you coming back for it?
It's a tricky one because I think I probably, and I don't think I don't think this is necessarily a common thing, but I enjoy the life of being an actor rather than the acting part a lot of the time, because the acting part stresses me out a lot because I'm so scared of getting it wrong. You know, like it's a daunting.
Ooh.
It's a daunting, you know, as being good or bad. So that's not to say I don't enjoy acting. I definitely do. And there are certainly scenes where I'm so looking forward to doing them, and I'm sad when it's over. But there are other scenes where I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I have to do that. Like if there's an emotional scene, if there's a scene that, you know, they've either written crying in or they want you to cry, that I've got, like, the 2 weeks leading up to that day, I'm just filled with anxiety. And on the morning I wake up, I'm like, I can't believe I've got to do that scene today. Please, acting gods, please come to me, you know. And then that day ends and it's like the biggest relief ever. But I think I enjoy more, even more than the acting part, I enjoy the life of it, of the people you meet. You know, this whole new family that you meet on a play or a film or a TV show that you can become incredibly close with, and the fact that you end up having these things that are there. You know, plays obviously aren't there forever, but anything on screen, the fact that you've got this bank of work that's there forever feels kind of cool as well.
Yeah, for sure. Can I ask you, so when you land a job, what kind of preparation do you do? Like what level of preparation do you set for yourself before you turn up day one on the set or in the rehearsal room? What do you think you should already have done?
I think that's one of those things that is so different, you know, depending on the actor you ask. And because I didn't train, I feel like I missed the bit about marking up a script. So I never mark up a script. My script is completely blank, and I'll often be on set or rehearsal room and I look over to the other actor and it's like ants are crawling over it. There's so much written on this script. And mine is completely blank. I mean, I'll write down things once we start rehearsing, of course, and you know, once the director is giving direction and notes. But I don't write anything down before starting a job, and it's just, I think, because I never did. You know, I wouldn't know what to write. For me, it's about, and I guess it is that thing of it is an instinctual thing of going, I'm going to read this and I'm going to take it in. And I'm going to read the character breakdown if there's one. I'm going to take that in. It's sort of like making a recipe almost. And then I'm going to, if I can, I'll speak to the director and or the writer about anything else they had in terms of ideas, how they saw the character. And it sort of goes into a weird sort of mixing bowl, and then something comes out. And when the writing's really good, I feel like the character jumps off the screen and you actually know that's, you feel like, I know how that's meant to be. I can tell who that person is just from reading this. The only other difference would be if you're doing a character who's real, like Charles Manson, would be there's a whole other level of stuff that you need to prepare. I don't see any point in doing my Charles Manson. I want to be Charles. I want to become that character to the point where, you know, the ideal endpoint is that someone watching it is going, geez, I can't even remember the real Charles Manson now. That is what you're trying to achieve. Whether you do or not is another thing, but that's what you're trying to achieve. So, you know, in that case, lots and lots of reading, and lots of watching videos of him.
Yes, and there are YouTube clips comparing, like in a split screen way, you know, like your performance as him and what he was really like. And I love that there wasn't anything kind of slavish about it, you know, that like in this moment, that's when I do this because he did that. You know, it feels like a completely embodied performance full of your own decisions. I mean, and I look at that performance and I was so unnerved and frankly frightened by you. But at the same time, there's that double reality going on, which is like, I know you and I've worked with you, but you are nowhere apparent in that performance, which is, I guess, you know, a great compliment to you.
Okay. Well, as I say, you know, the makeup certainly helps as well. Not just from a visual perspective, but from an acting perspective. You know, you look in the mirror before you go on and you look like that. It's you know that one toss of the hair or you know, walking in a particular way, having that makeup and that costume that's just turned you into him, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, good. So do you still have to audition for roles?
Yeah, I do. In Australia, less so. In America, pretty much always still,
Yeah. I mean, I know that like you were involved, like you had this kind of incredible record of 4 actor nominations last year. And Joel Edgerton had said, could you, you know, you're one of the hardest working actors. Could you just work a little less so someone else could get a job?
He can talk.
I know, that's what I thought. I thought he's all over everything. So can you tell me, like, you know, like with acting, it's kind of feast or famine, isn't it? Like, you know, like if you're lucky to keep working, it's a blessing. But there can be these big delays between jobs. And like you said, the situation we find ourselves in is like what it's like to be between jobs. What do you do in terms of your mental health? And also in terms of making sure you're match fit for when the next thing comes up? What, besides writing, is there anything else that you do?
I guess watching movies, going to the movie. Obviously, we can't go to the movies at the moment, but that's what I would normally do, and try and soak in great performances in movies. And um, in terms of my mental health, I think I'm in a bit of an unusual situation um, because I gave up acting during high school, and then sort of got back into it because I moved to Sydney from Adelaide, and I had this office job, but I was sort of doing it on the side. I didn't ever have that thing of going, okay. I mean, I think it would be a lot harder if I had come, like I think for you guys, I think I had it easier in one respect from a mental perspective, because when you go to do an acting course over a considerable amount of time, you're living and breathing acting. And I've never had that experience of living and breathing acting. I had this office job, and then I'd go and do an acting job and then go back, but I didn't ever have it be the thing I woke up and did every day. And I think when you do that, there's no question when you then get out of the course, especially when you're all getting out together and you're looking to see what your buddies are doing, and did you get an agent, and or did you audition for that? All of that stuff can be a really tough thing mentally, I think. So I think because I had this other job, and I wasn't comparing myself with a direct other group of people, it sort of was easier for me. So I think I kind of am lucky in that respect. And so ever since then, even when I'm not working, and even if it's been months and there's nothing coming up, as long as I can pay the rent, I haven't really ever freaked out. And there were lots of gaps. I mean, I work a fair bit now, but in my 20s and early 30s, I really had lots of big gaps. I wouldn't work for 6, 8, 12 months quite often. But I think because I just wasn't ever, I never really, in a weird way, never really took myself seriously enough as an actor to be too down about it if I wasn't working. I would just be like super excited if I got a job.
Yeah, it is exciting. And also, I've learned that from in terms of actors and their career longevity, if you have another interest, that's a really healthy thing. Like with you, it's writing. But if you don't invest everything and don't identify yourself as, if I'm not working as an actor, I don't have an identity, that's a really healthy way to look at it. Also, I should say that when you said that you don't write anything in your script, you've created a huge problem for us tomorrow when we start teaching again with our students, because it's the opposite of what we teach them.
Of course. Listen, I'm embarrassed to even mention that, because I know that that's what happens in every single acting school. Do not listen to me. That's bad advice. Write things in your script. Maybe I'll come to the lesson so you can show me what to write.
Well, it seems to have worked for you without brainstorming on a whiteboard. Yeah, and there are many ways to do it. That's the thing. That's what I've learned through my career as well. You can't try and imitate what someone else's career path was and think, well, if I do that, that'll work.
Yeah.
And
well, I think that in terms of actors' processes, a really good example of two amazing actors would be, Anthony Hopkins and Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis is in character for 6 months. Anthony Hopkins pretty much just learns the lines, and that's it. They're both masterful, So there's not one way, and I think there's a really good lesson in that. Just looking, and they're just two examples of many. There are lots of ways to do it. As long as you're getting there in the end, I think that it doesn't really matter how you get there.
That's the thing. And it made me think today when I was talking to you on the phone and thinking about what we were going to talk about. And I was thinking, like, when you watch a magician and you think there's something going on that I can't see, but it's happening in front of me, but I don't want to know how they do it. But when it comes to acting, and particularly with an audience of acting students, we want to know how you do it. So there's talent and there's that kind of prep work, but you talked kind of more about a hunch, didn't you? Like a feeling for it. To what degree is it in an intellectual process, like where you're thinking systematically, and to what degree is it intuition?
Again, I think that depends on the actor. For me, it definitely is more intuition. I think it's a combination of sort of a life of people watching, and that's probably what was good actually about having that 9 years in an office. It's just like there's so many different characters in an office that you know, and you end up doing impressions of them to make your friends laugh, and you're taking in all these different aspects of people. I feel like for me, playing a role is kind of a combination of what you have seen in other people's behavior combined with how you know you behave in certain scenarios. I don't know who said it, but I quite liked this thing I heard a few years ago, which is acting is not, it's not, you're not asking yourself, what would I do in that scenario? You're not asking yourself, what would that person do in that scenario? You're asking yourself, what would I do if I were that person in that scenario? And I kind of like that. I sort of feel like that's what I do. That's what sort of works for me.
Yeah. And yet, I mean, one of the things I'm always hammering to the students is don't turn the character into you.
Oh, have you lost me? I feel like
For a
something's
second,
frozen.
it was kind of like a freeze frame. It's something for the ages. It'll be there forever.
Can you still hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me? The audience can hear me, I think. Thumbs up if you can hear me. There we go. Damon, can you hear me? This is why live theatre will never die.
Oh, yes, I can now. It sort of dropped out for 20 seconds.
Hey, I vamped till ready. Don't worry, we covered it. But, you know, like I'm saying to the students, can you hear me still, Damon? Is that your thinking face? Where's he gone? He's disappeared. I can see Anna Summerhays, but hello there.
Have you got me back?
There you are.
Sorry, I do not know what happened then.
It
could be this annoying COVID internet that's going
around. So, because everybody needs it more than ever, don't they?
Yeah.
I should also flag at this moment, this is a good time for the students to start writing questions in the chat window so that I can see those and I can sort of cherry pick which ones I'm going to ask the students to ask you, Damon.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've heard me say that, so now they can write questions, and I'll pick the ones they're going to ask, and they're going to ask you themselves. So can you tell us? I mean, one of the questions is bound to be, so I'll gazump them. What's it like working with Quentin Tarantino?
It's awesome. It's as fun as it looks like it would be. He's just so incredibly full of life and enthusiasm. He genuinely loves making movies, and he said that's his kind of trademark line on set is he'll say something because we love making movies, and he'll do a couple of takes of a scene and he'll be like, okay, I think we got it, but let's do it again because we love making movies. And you're like, oh wow, yeah, we do.
Great way of putting it. It used to be one more for safety. Remember when we were shooting on film, it'd be like one more for safety.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he still shoots on film, actually. He's one of the few left. He's never shot a film that's not shot on film. But no, it was a pure joy. Just super enthusiastic and and a really lovely vibe on set. No prima donnas, no kind of ego. Just very calm and chill people.
And you can tell, given that he started, working in a video store, that he still has that kind of. He acts like a fan, doesn't he? Like he's so excited by the process and the iconic performances and the style of previous work.
Yeah, so, and he's an encyclopedia of knowledge about everything film-wise and also everything else. If you mention any topic, he can talk for 10 minutes about it in great detail.
Right, yes. It's an encyclopedic kind of mind, isn't it? I'm now being flooded with questions from the students. So I think we should segue rather abruptly into those.
Okay.
I'm going to look to my right and see some of these. So Meredith, you can ask your question.
All righty. I was just kind of wondering, what have you had to sacrifice in your personal life for the sake of your career? And is it all worth it?
I mean, look, I'm not married and I don't have kids. I guess that's the sacrifice, although it's not really been a conscious thing. Although I'm sure I probably would be if I hadn't been traveling between two different countries for the last 15 years. But it doesn't feel like a sacrifice, also because it's, it's not like it can't happen still, and I still have relationships and things. But yeah, that is definitely harder because of the going between two countries. But essentially, I don't feel like certainly at the moment. Maybe if it all kind of went horribly wrong and ended in tears, I would start thinking about what I was missing. But at the moment, I'm just getting so much fulfillment from the work side that no, I feel like that's not been the case for me.
Good. Thank you. All right, Greta Goodworth, ask your question.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering how you kind of navigate theatre and screen acting, and like what you prefer, or how you, I guess, made the change between the two.
I don't think I actually have a preference as such. I just think like whatever is good, and also what I haven't done for a while, like which thing I haven't actually done recently. So like at the moment, I haven't done a play for like 4 years or something. So I'm sort of like thinking, oh, that would be really fun to do a play, because I haven't done one. But I don't really have a preference. Look, probably an amazing film with some amazing director in America would be hard to turn that down for any play, probably. But that's not to say I still wouldn't want to do a play back home, given the opportunity and being the right play. Was there another part to your question? I can't remember.
No, I guess kind of. So you still like doing both, though, kind of like a whatever opportunity you get.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have more opportunities on film and TV things than with theatre, but I really, really enjoy doing plays. I haven't done a comedy in a long time. The play I did with Adam was a comedy, and it was so much fun. I mean, there's nothing really in film and TV that compares with that feeling of a live audience. It's the closest thing I think actors get to feeling like a rock star, is to have people laughing.
Good. All right, Charles Ann, can you ask Damon your question?
Hello. My question is, whenever you portrayed a character, were there any aftermath after you played the role, or did you feel that the character has changed you in any sort of way, or were you able to completely separate yourself from the character? And if so, how were you able to achieve that? If I'm allowed to ask that.
Yeah, no, good question. I given how many horrible people I've played in the last few years, I'm very glad to say that I do not hold on to characters at all. I barely really do, even between takes. I don't know. I know there are people that definitely do, or they go home and they still feel that they are carrying the character for weeks or months sometimes. I'm very thankful that that's not the case with me. I don't know why it is for some people and not for others. But yeah, I feel like even mid-take, if I like, I don't know, just trying to think of an example. I might be doing something in an American accent mid-take, and I can see, that the car is not where it's meant to be in shot or something, and I can just I just drop straight back into my Australian, and I'll be acting American, go, hey, that car's I don't think that's meant to be in shot, is it? Okay, cool, and then just go back into it. It's just one of those things that for me, it is a bit of a on and off switch. But I know that's not always, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just sort of how it is. But definitely glad that that's the case, because I would hate to be taking home some of the characters I've been playing the last few years, that's for sure.
All right. Okay, good. So we're going to ask Finley, can you ask your question, please?
Hello. I'm not going to turn my camera on because I look like a potato. Please forgive me.
I'm sure you look like a potato, but I
sure you, yeah. I wanted to know what because I am absolutely shithouse at learning lines. I wanted to know what techniques you find have been the most effective for you.
yeah, good question. It's not fun learning lines.
No, it is not.
Gets harder with age, I hate to tell you. Well, I used to do pretty much just, read the scene a couple of times and then cover up the line I have. So I'd look at the person's line before me, cover up the next one, which is my line, and then just sort of look at the first sentence or two and then repeat that back until I could do it, and then look at the next bit and then see if I can do that whole bit together, and then just do that all through the lines. And then I would go back through it and do that again and do that again, do that again until I knew them. I think Sarah Snook put me onto this. I'm sure you know, wonderful Australian actor. This app, there are a few different ones, but this particular one is called Line Learner, and it's great. You basically record, there's a button on there that says me and a button that says them, and every me line is your line, and you just go press, say the line, press, and every them line you say press and press it again, until you end up with the scene with all the lines. And then the app lets you hear all of the lines. It lets you hear just their lines, just your lines. It basically leaves the exact gap of the length of your line. So you can repeat your line after hearing it. You can say it in the gap and then hear it repeated to make sure it was correct. It's really, really good. I just do that and then play that over and over and over again, and it becomes a bit like a song on the radio that you've heard so many times without even trying.
Right, good, thank you. Right, Kat White, ask your question.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to know, how do you, as an actor who's been quite successful, how did you handle rejection? How did you kind of handle that kind of rejection? How did you handle that?
Just the general rejection of not getting roles or not getting.
Yeah, you were saying how you were trying really, you had to keep on, you just weren't getting anything. How did you handle that?
I think, I mean, again, this is a weird thing to kind of, it's not a good thing to have really, but I think it benefited me in that regard. And that is, it wasn't like I ever was going, damn it, why can't they see how good I am? This is crazy that they're not hiring me. I would not get a role and be like, of course I didn't get it. Why would I get it? Now, that's not it's probably not great self-esteem to have, but what it did do is it made not getting roles a little easier, especially when I was going to America that first time and I wasn't getting anything, because I was like, well, why will I? Why would I? I'm not saying, oh, I think I'm a terrible actor, why would I? There are so many actors there. Why am I going to be the one that gets this role? I used to find it harder. I tell you what I actually have found way harder than not getting a role is not getting an audition. And I still find that frustrating. I think not getting an audition for something that you have read or heard about or know someone else going for it and they're like you is the worst feeling, because you can't get the role without the audition. There's no, it's the only thing you need to show them what you can do. And if I audition for something and I don't get the role, I figure, well, someone better got the role. I can rationalize that very easily. If I don't get the role and I never had a shot at auditioning, it's depressing. And that can be depressing right through to when you watch it a year later, because you're like, damn, I never even got to go for that thing. I don't know, actually, to answer your question, I don't know how you deal with that other than just go, this is one of the crappy parts of our job, is that there are going to be jobs you get and auditions are, jobs you get, other people don't, auditions you get and other people don't. There's always, what I do know now is that there is always going to be someone, just like you look at someone and go, damn, I wish I had their career. There's nearly always someone looking at you thinking that too. There are so many different levels of where you can be in this. There's someone going to see you in a play at the Old Fitz going, how do I get into a play at the Old Fitz? I just want to get a play at the Old Fitz. And then there's, you know, someone like Joel Edgerton probably looking at Leonardo DiCaprio going, well, how do I get to that point? Or, you know, there's so many levels. So I guess that's just one thing to remind yourself of, that you're almost certainly not at the bottom, no matter what it feels like.
and it's kind of out of your control too. You can only do the best work you can do, and like you said, you want to get into the room, you know, because I can show you what I could possibly do. It reminds me of that scene in Tootsie, you know, where he keeps auditioning Dustin Hoffman, and they say, he says, I can be taller, I can be shorter, and then they say, we want someone else.
Yeah. And that is the thing too, you know, that's the thing. I when I don't get a role that I've auditioned for now, I generally don't get too beaten up about it, because I just know that they are nearly always casting the person that matches what they had in mind in the first place. And if you don't walk in and match that, you're probably not going to get the role. So just do a good audition and they're going to remember you next time anyway.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing. And the real trick is to work for people twice rather than once, you know, like is to be asked back to do something. Pat Grandin, can you ask your question, please?
Yeah. Hi, Damon. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the culture difference between American films and Australian films, like on set. I guess not maybe specifically on set in general.
Yeah. There's actually not, I was surprised at how little difference there was. There are just more people over there, more crew members doing God knows what, but there are just a lot more of them. And there's way more food. You will not go hungry. There is food everywhere, 24 hours a day. Yes, if you like donuts, you're going to like American film sets. They're just donuts everywhere. Yeah, but other than that, the actual part of working on set is not that different. It can, you know, differ between productions and directors and things, but yeah, I was actually surprised that, you know, there are some other differences in like auditioning is a bit different. They generally want you to be holding your pages when you go for an audition. A lot of American actors don't even learn the lines, which is a very different thing from here for auditions. I mean, which I tried to do and failed dismally. I was just like, went back to learning them, because it's very weird to try and switch that after doing it for so many years here. And also auditioning there is a bit more of a cattle call. You know, you go in, often there's no rehearsal of the audition. There's no, often no second take. So it is more demoralizing. Auditioning here, I didn't realize how good we have it, actually. They generally don't even hire an actor to read opposite you there. Just someone from the office reads, and often not very well. So we really have it better here for that side of things.
Thank you. Olivia Hall-Smith, ask your question for Damon, please.
Hello. Hi, Damon.
Hi.
This was kind of a two-part question. Firstly, are there any specific writers or directors that you really want to work with?
And also, are there any specific performances that have inspired you and that you recommend watching?
Oh boy, I mean, that last question, I wish I should have that on the top of my, you know, ready to go, shouldn't I? Actually, no, I did think of one, because I mean, obviously there are a lot of performances, you know, favorite actors, definitely the you know, Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Joaquin Phoenix, all those people. The performance that actually inspired me for years after I saw it, and I saw it when I was like 11, is Anthony Hopkins in The Elephant Man. He didn't play the Elephant Man. John Hurt played the Elephant Man brilliantly, but Anthony Hopkins as the Dr. Treves is just extraordinary. If you haven't seen The Elephant Man, watch that movie. It is a beautiful film as well. And the other part of the question I've forgotten. What was the other part?
So it was, are there any specific writers or directors that you really want to work with?
I mean, yeah, I think probably just, you know, I don't have any particular, I mean, ones that are ridiculous like Martin Scorsese and things would be amazing. But I don't expect that's going to happen, but but yeah, to work with someone of someone like him would be pretty extraordinary. There's I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but I can't hear you.
Who are you trying to hear?
Oh, it's all right. Sorry, I didn't answer that question very well. If I think of someone, I'll mention it.
Let me know. Yeah, and I remember The Elephant Man and watching it at the movies at Hoyt's in George Street and just sobbing and thinking that I had to cover my mouth because, like it was so moving and incredible. And I think people being kind to other people can be very moving, like Anthony Hopkins was in that film. All right, good.
Yeah, he's just a great Anthony Hopkins in that film is just a masterclass in not having to telegraph anything. I think that's a really good thing to remember with screen acting, particularly, is that if you think something, it's amazing how much the camera picks up of you thinking. You don't, and he just does that brilliantly in that film. His face is not really moving ever, but in his eyes, there's so much going on. And I think that's a really good overriding lesson of screen acting is trust that the camera, especially close-ups, my goodness, it's amazing. You just think the thing that you want to think and you might go, but my face isn't doing anything, but it actually is. It's all in the eyes.
Yeah, I learned that from my movement teacher at NIDA. He said, thinking is movement, is you don't have to be physically moving at all, but that thought process. So the third years are about to start their camera classes. And so there's that seismic jolt that comes when you start to see yourself on camera as well. So that joy awaits them.
Yeah, and just on that same thing, I just thought of like something that I feel like is a really easy pitfall to kind of get stuck in is with lying. I think lying is a really good example of something that people do too much of in screen acting. They think, oh, this is the bit where the other character comes in and says, did you steal my brownies? And they're like, they did steal them. And they're like, they do this kind of lying acting of, no, I didn't steal brownies. Why do I even like brownies? And it's just like, nobody lies like that in real life. We're good liars in real life. We go, no, I didn't even know you made brownies. Like, you don't need to lie in the acting. But you do need to be feeling guilty in your head, and there'll be a twinkle of that in your eyes.
Yes, indeed. I think, yes, like you said, we're very good liars. Yeah. And people don't need to demonstrate it on film. Good. Okay, I'm going to look for some other questions for you, Damon. This is going really well. I think you're really in the zone now. So we're going to just ask some other questions. Bear with me while I scroll through. There's a lot of questions. Nicola Denton, could you ask your question, please?
Sure. I am in 4th year, and we're getting taught a lot about how to kind of market yourself and push yourself out to casting directors and that sort of thing. And I was curious as to how much of that you did and how much thought you put into like marketing yourself and curating your image as such of who you are as an actor.
Not very much at all, but I think it's changed a lot. I don't even have a public Instagram, but you do hear that having a public Instagram and a lot of followers is an important thing as an actor now, because you may actually get, when they come down to 2 people that they're choosing between, you may get a job or lose a job based on things like Instagram followers, which seems crazy to me, but it's just the way it is. I never really, I think that stuff about marketing yourself and all that, look, there's obviously a side to it that's important. And it also depends on what your type is. Like, what do you look like? what sort of productions do you want to be in? There's definitely going to be a big difference between someone who is, say, has Hollywood looks, whatever that is, who wants to be a star and wants to be on the cover of every magazine. That person is going to go into their career in a very different way from someone like me, who doesn't have those looks and doesn't have those desires, So for me, I guess there's no sort of there's no sort of marketing that I've done, but I guess I have, by trying to pick roles that are quite different from each other and look very different from each other. I guess in a way that's sort of a version of marketing that's the type of actor I am and want to be, which is someone who plays lots of different characters and likes to transform. And so in a sense, that's a version of marketing. I'm not doing it for that reason, but I guess it serves that purpose in a way. But I know it must be weird being a young actor kind of about to go out into the world of it all and go, well, you know, what am I, do I have to have this sort of publicity around myself or marketing around myself? I don't think you have to do anything. And again,
ooh, how suspenseful. What's he going to say? He'll come back. They always come back.
Sorry. It must be my internet because you're all fine, aren't you?
Yes. It's maybe it's a surfboard behind you. Maybe there's something about the
maybe.
Surf.
Yes. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes, you did. Thank you. All right.
I think just to finish that off, I think it's more important, you know, if you feel icky about any of that stuff, don't do it. It's more important to be true to yourself. And, you know, there are certain types of roles and productions that require that more than others. And maybe if all that stuff makes you feel a bit weird and icky, maybe those types of things aren't for you, but there are other stuff that you like to do. I certainly don't feel super comfortable in that marketing myself world, you know.
Yeah, but you seem to have done pretty well without having to spend your life on Instagram and Facebook. You're rarely on Facebook. It's something of an event when you post something. I remember one time you and I ran into each other in Los Angeles and we had a coffee catch up. And I said to you I was going to be directing an opera in Florida and I hadn't driven in America before. And you said the secret is tight right and loopy left. And I never forgot that, particularly in America when it was very, very useful. And I never looked back. And I think if I had, I would have hit the car in front of me. But
right. Only do that if you're turning a corner, by the way. Don't do that just when you're driving along a straight road. That would be terrible.
Oh, too late, she cried. So I wanted to ask you, as we wrap up, I want to ask you in terms of like advice that you could give students in training. What's the best piece of advice do you think you could give to actors who are in training? Some who are watching you tonight, who are only like, you know, not 10 weeks into their course, and others who are, you know, a couple of months out from graduating. So in terms of the time they occupy now, what's the best advice you could give to actors in training?
Yeah, that's a tricky one because I didn't do it myself. So, but I can certainly give an answer given those circumstances. I guess a couple of things I would say. One is, you know, find in the various things you're learning, the various techniques you're learning, find the things that work for you because there's no one correct way. That would be one piece of advice. And I guess when you get out, just bear in mind, and you know, you sort of work this out very quickly anyway, but that whatever it is that is your process, it may not be the process of the other actors you're working with on that day, on that production. So do what you need to do to get where you are going, and know that they may be doing something else or maybe doing nothing at all, or, you know, and hopefully everyone can, you know, the ideal situation is everyone respects each other's processes and it works a treat.
Yeah, good. Very good answer. It's a tricky one, as you said, if you haven't been through the training process, but you learnt on the job. Clay Crichton, can you ask your question, please?
Hello.
Hi.
What was my question? I think it was, I was just wondering, like, if you've ever had to turn down an opportunity at any point, and like, how do you kind of move past or even make that decision? Or how do you move past those feelings of missed opportunities and, yeah, going forward?
So do you mean like if I regret that I that's something that I turned down, and yeah.
Yeah. How do you make those decisions and kind of, you know, like rectify it in your mind and understand that you've done the right thing? Or
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky with not. I can't actually think, and there might be one, but I can't actually think of a time I've turned something down and regretted it later. I probably have a couple of instances where I've said yes to something and regretted it later. You know, when I turn up on set. So that would normally be that I've read something and been like, well, I'm not having many opportunities at the moment, and this work's come along, and I shouldn't say no to work, so I'll do this. But I really don't get who this character is, and this dialogue just feels like clunky. I definitely have.
Definitely have what?
Had that where I then regret it. And sorry, what was that?
You froze. So you said I definitely, and we needed to hear the rest of the sentence.
I've definitely, I don't know what is wrong with my damn internet. I've definitely had situations where I've said yes to something and regretted it because the you know, I've turned up on set and realized that I just don't know what I'm doing and I should never have done it. And then I watch it later and go, oh, yep, that was bad. You should not have done that. But you get over it. You get over it in a few weeks. You just hope it only comes back to haunt you when it's on repeat a couple of years later.
I'm sure there's something you can learn from it as well, even if it was like possibly something you shouldn't have taken for your career-wise, but yeah.
And by the way, the thing I did probably learn is if you feel eggy when you're reading something, maybe don't take it. Maybe you're going to feel eggy when you turn up.
But it can be challenging, can't it? Because like early on in your career, you think I should take every job I'm offered.
Well, that's right. You don't want to be that. That's the thing. It's like you you need the money to live, and B, you want to get the experience. You want to get tape for your show reel. So it can be tricky when you feel unsure about something at that point of your career. Because you can't be as choosy. That's just the way it is. But I still think, you know, you can be a little bit choosy. You don't look, and that's another point I would just make as a career thing. A lot of careers are made by perception. The perception of you as an actor, how people see you, apart from how good you are, how people see you, like whether they see you as a quality actor or as a soapy actor or as a theatre actor or as a film actor, all these different things, whether you like it or not, people are going to perceive you a certain way. So sometimes you're making decisions and you've got to make them early on as well that are going to affect how you're perceived. That's another point worth making, I think.
Yeah, and I remember working with Neil Arfield, who you've worked with a number of times, who had said to me when I was casting a show, he said, don't think who can play it, think who could play it. And which comes back to my point about people being cast usually to play, you know, themselves and play with the energy they already have as a person. And that kind of creative, lateral, elastic thinking in casting is a really exciting thing to do. I'm going to ask you one last question and we're going to wrap it up, Damon. And of course, you know what it's going to be, which is, what's the best piece of advice that you could give to these actors who are watching you now about the life of an actor? What's ahead for them? What's the challenge of it? How to handle it?
Yeah, boy.
You knew it was coming.
It's the trickiest question, that one. I think, look, again, this is just for me, what I feel like has worked is having having the passion, of course, having the dreams and having the goals, but also having a life outside of acting. And when you're in training, it's kind of, you live and breathe acting, you know, it's your everything. But I think from both it kind of serves two purposes to have a life outside of it. And by that, I guess I mean that not all your friends are other actors, and that you're not just constantly, every conversation is about acting. And, you know, I think there are two purposes for that. One is just as a a mental health thing. The more you become obsessed with any topic, then the more it needs to go exactly as planned, or you're going to crumble down into a heap because it didn't. So I think there's that. But apart from that, I think it benefits your acting. I think if you are associating with, real people in the real world, and for at least some of your time, that you can draw on that. And there's no doubt in my mind that characters I've played, have drawn on people that I've got to know, and they're not normally other actors. They're some some uncle of yours, or someone you met in a bar, or so I think as a very broad piece of advice, I would say that.
Yeah, and I'm always encouraging the students to go to Norton Plaza, which is, just down the road from the school, because it's a really good place for people watching. There's all kinds of generations and all kinds of people facing all kinds of challenges that you intuit from watching them. So, keep your eyes out and your ears open.
Absolutely, and you'll often see a character that you were like, damn, if I hadn't seen that with my own eyes, I would never have believed that a person like that existed. And, you can remind yourself that another, good lesson for acting, that a performance can be, or a character can be, as big or small as you like, as long as it's truthful, because there are some pretty big characters out there in the world.
Indeed. And, often with student actors, they'll say, oh, I was worried about being too big. And then you say, if only you were. It's never too big. Give us a big bold, strong offer first, and then we can rein it in. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, it's been wonderful to talk to you. It's been a real treat and an honor and a privilege to share this time with you. Thank you for being so gracious with your time with us.
My pleasure.
And we wish you all the very best for whatever's coming up for you once we're back in the real world, face-to-face working. And we really, really appreciate the time you spent with us. So thank you so much, Damon.
No worries. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And thanks for your great questions.
And this was our inaugural In Conversation. The next will be with Susan Pryor, who was also in Laughter on the 23rd Floor.
Susan Pryor is, and has been for years, one of my favourite Australian actors. I absolutely adore her in everything she does. She's brilliant.
Also from Adelaide.
Also from Adelaide.
So thanks so much, and have a great night, Damon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you again on the 13th of May. Thanks, Damon.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.